When thinking about the British culture, the first things that probably come to mind are drinking tea, going on a night out with your friends, eating fish and chips, or going down to the pub for a few drinks. And with British weddings, the first things that probably come to mind are stag do's, seeing the bride and groom walk down the aisle and kiss at the altar, and possibly after parties. But these are things widely known by many Brits and other countries alike. But when it comes to Brits knowing or understanding about another country's culture, lifestyle or wedding, they will probably most likely end up drawing a blank. My name is Emre Aydin, and this is a look into a wedding of the Turkish Abkhazian culture. As you know, Turkey is a transcontinental country which is mainly located in Asia, with a smaller segment being part of Europe. It has a population of over 80 million, which consists of people from a variety of cultures and ethnic backgrounds. One of these ethnic groups belongs to Abkhazia. Abkhazia is a recognised independent republic state near the coast of the Black Sea and Georgia. It has a population of around 240,000. Now that you're a little bit more comfortable with both countries, you have to understand that in certain parts of Turkey, mainly cities like Düzce, there are a lot of Abkhazian Turkish people that have integrated into a core part of society. The only people that know that they're Abkhazian are other Abkhazians. Moving on from this point, both Turkish and Abkhazian weddings share quite a lot of similarities. In fact, they are practically the same, with the exception of Abkhazians having extra certain rules and a dedicated dance, but more on that later. For now, let's start at the beginning. In both cultures, in order to get properly married, it is custom that both the bride and the groom have gotten consent from their parents. In the Abkhazian culture, the next step is to ask for permission from the eldest of the bride's family. Once the bride and the groom have received consent, the groom, along with his close family, visits the home of the bride and her family. Here the groom's father must ask for permission from the bride's father for his son to marry her daughter. When both sides agree, the bride and groom can then start to plan their wedding. Do bear in mind that this is done in a formal way, because both cultures rely heavily upon each family respecting and trusting one another. These two factors are the key element in every marriage. While planning the wedding, both the bride and the groom will have to decide if they want it to take place at a wedding hall or at the groom's village home. Whichever one they pick will end up having a different outcome to the other, but more on that later. Once the location has been decided, the invitations go out to their friends and family and the preparations begin. Once everything is planned, the days following up to the wedding, the groom's family will end up having a meet and greet for their guests within their home. Any of the teens or youths from the groom's side going to the wedding will be helping out by waiting food and drinks to the tables for the guests. Sometimes there will be guests who won't be able to make the wedding, so they will end up visiting during this meet and greet, bearing gifts to congratulate the bride, the groom and their families. At this point, I should note that the bride and the groom will be at separate locations, both of them at their respective homes. During the meet and greet, the guests will gift both the bride and the groom money hidden in an envelope, which will then be documented in a book that will keep a record of the amount that is gifted, the person who gifted the money, their family name, and if anyone else from their family has also sent a gift. More on this later. Towards the end of the night, both sides of the groom and bride will end up having their own sort of entertainment. What they choose is up to them, and this can range from dancing and drinking. On the day of the wedding, the bride's family will start to prepare for the arrival of guests from the groom's side later in the day. At the same time, the groom's family will be tending to more guests arriving to their home for the wedding. In preparation for this, a few days prior, a lamb will be sacrificed and its meat will be given to the guests as food, along with rice and desserts, which would all be handmade. Once the bride's family is finished preparing everything, they will notify the groom's family that they are ready, at which point a convoy of people will make their way to the bride, where they will collect her and bring her back to the groom's home. The convoy of people going usually include men and a number of elders from the family and the village. During all of this, the groom will stay hidden from everyone, and so he will select a number of people that will be his helpers and messengers throughout the day. The bride will also have helpers which she also chooses herself. Upon arrival at the bride's home, the travelling elders will be greeted by the bride's family and elders, where they will sit down together in the living room and chat amongst each other. Everyone else in the house will either help with serving tea and desserts for the guests, or they will go to see the bride and sit with her if she allows it. This will continue until the groom's family gets notified by the remaining people at the groom's home that they are ready for both families. At this point, the groom's elders will ask for permission to take the bride back to the groom's home and continue with the wedding. If permission is granted by the bride's elders, she will be notified that the wedding will continue and that they are ready for her and her helpers. A few prayers are said and the convoy takes the bride back to the groom's home, with the remainder of the bride's family following. Upon arrival, the bride with her helpers will start walking towards the groom's home, where she will be handed the Quran to hold in one arm to symbolise a long-lasting happy marriage, and a loaf of bread in the other to symbolise that they are plentiful in life and marriage. Hard candy is also thrown over the bride's head to illustrate that their marriage be as sweet and as lasting as the candies thrown. Finally, a gun and knife are held at the roof of the door while the bride walks through, to symbolise that the couple's marriage be peaceful and caring, while also warding off any evil. Once inside, the bride is given food and drink and is greeted by more guests by the groom's family and friends congratulating her. I should also note that the bride and groom are placed in separate rooms where, depending on the type of wedding, one of two things will happen. Firstly, if it is a village wedding, then the groom would sneak into the bride's room, where they would then go out together and start the wedding with the first dance. However, if the wedding takes place at a wedding hall, which in this case it does, then the groom would sneak out of the house and secretly get into a car specifically for the couple. From there, the bride would get notified by her and the groom's helpers, and she would proceed to get into the car and go to the wedding hall. Upon arrival, the bride and groom enter the building and start to make their way to their private room, where they will wait for the rest of the guests to arrive. During this period, it is custom and out of respect that the teenagers at the wedding stand by the entrance of the wedding hall, meeting and greeting any guests that are arriving. Once all the majority of the guests have arrived and taken their seats, the bride and groom will make their way down together into the hall. Now, this is where a segment of the wedding might change depending on the circumstances. If the couple hasn't yet wed each other beforehand, then they will do it at this stage of the wedding with a marriage officiant present. If the couple has wed each other, then they will make their way into the centre stage and start to slow dance. The dance will then be repeated, but this time other couples will be asked to join in. After the dance is concluded, a wedding cake will be brought out for the couple, which will then be distributed among the guests to eat. Following that, guests will then start to line up next to the bride and groom to give them gifts and to take a picture. A silk scarf will be placed around the necks and torso of both the bride and the groom, where the guests will either start to pin red ribbons or money to it. The bride may also receive golden bracelets and earrings as gifts. Following this comes the fun and entertaining part of the evening, where Turkish music starts to play and a lot of people take the centre stage to dance. Something interesting to note is that each city and region in Turkey has its own style of music and dancing. Many of them may sound and look similar, but there are little things that can tell them apart. One of the cities with exceptions to this is the style and music of Bursa, where the dancing routine includes using swords and shields, by clanging the weapons together to create sounds. Now we come to the part of the evening that is only exclusively special for the Abkhazians. This is the special dance of the Abkhazians, which is part of their tradition and culture, so it is custom for the dance to happen towards the end of the wedding and at every Abkhazian wedding. However, if somebody from either the bride or groom's family or anyone from their village has passed away recently, the dance won't happen out of respect for the recently deceased. For the dance, two instruments are used. an accordion and a long plank of wood with small clubs. Both instruments need to be played in sync, as the people dancing will adjust their body movement accordingly. One person will be playing the accordion, while around 10 men will be playing the planks, and at the same time, they will also be chanting the family name of the dancers. The routine of the dance is quite easy and simple to learn and understand, especially for the women, because they will be copying or shadowing whatever the man does. The hard part of the dance is to get the footwork right, because it may look simple, but it is very hard to pull off correctly. Once the Abkhazian dance has concluded, the guests will slowly start to leave as the wedding is nearing its end. At this point, quite a lot of people will want to get some photos with the bride and groom, especially with everyone in their family. And that concludes the wedding of the Turks and Abkhazians. I hope you enjoyed and learned a few things about the country and the two different cultures within. Thank you for listening and goodbye.